Last time we chatted with the Quincy School Committee Vice Chair Anthony Andronico, there had not yet been a new superintendent named Anthony. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you. I know it's been a few weeks, but it's definitely I'm glad to be back.
Good to have you back, although certainly the school committee has not taken any breaks, even though you and I have. You've been actively working through this whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, I think it's appropriate to start off where we have a permanent superintendent now, and Superintendent Kevin Mulvey. The committee voted ultimately 6-1 to appoint Mr. Mulvey to the position. I think overall the committee was really encouraged by the work that he and the team put in over the last few months. The way his colleagues that work with him every day speak about him, and the feedback that we received from the public, even in the work that he had done with the focus groups for the reentry for the fall, about how he conducted himself, how he conducted the team, how he brought that team together, and the promise that he showed. So we're very confident in our choice, and obviously with any selection, any decision you make of this magnitude, not everyone's going to be happy. But we genuinely believe that he will do a fantastic job for Quincy and for our students and families moving forward.
Have the contract negotiations been finalized yet?
Not just yes, but that has mainly nothing to do with any issues within the contract, but mainly each of us sort of has an understanding of where we're trying to get a contract done with our teachers union, and that's sort of taken precedent for the time, and I think that shows Mr. Mulvey's faith in the school committee to get a job done, a contract done with him as well.
Yeah, of course, his biggest challenge is going to be reopening during the COVID-19 pandemic, and he's been working on that all along, I know.
Yeah, that's to put it mildly, I think. I mean, they've genuinely been working around the clock, Mr. Mulvey and the team. The reentry task force and obviously the school committee has met more times over the last few months during the summer months than I think we met all of last year regularly. We had another meeting last night to further discuss the reopening schedule and the timeline. I know folks sort of just want to know, like, what is my student gonna be back? When are you phasing in? And then what are you going to look at to make your decision on whether it's appropriate to continue along that phase-in schedule, and just to go over, what the plan is again. And so the school committee voted to send pre-K to 3 and high needs students back September 16th, Wednesday, September 16th, which is the first official day of school. We did vote to delay the start of school for a few days to allow for some more professional development and work to be done to our buildings. The professional development mainly centers around health and safety, ensuring our teachers fully understand the health and safety guidelines and how to administer PPE and wipe surfaces and things like that. And also, the big component is going to be technology and making sure that everyone fully understands the tech that they need to use in order to be successful. So just those few extra days will really help us out. So they grade 1 to 3 starts on the 16th. Pre-K and K starts on September 21st, just the following Monday. That follows the same timeline that we would have if we did not delay the start of school. Phase 2 is grades 4 to 8 entering our buildings on Tuesday, October 13th. So that's 3 weeks from September 21st. And phase 3 are the high schools, and they'll go back on Monday, November 9th. So the thinking between those timelines, the first from phase 1 to phase 2 is 3 weeks. Ruth Jones, the health commissioner, has said that we really need those 3 weeks in order to better assess and understand just exactly how well our health and safety protocols are working, and all the work that we put in are going the way that we expected. I know folks sort of say, well, Quincy's doing really well right now, we should send everyone back at the moment. And just the truth of the matter is, if you want students in school for the whole school year, or like through June of next year, our health commissioners told us the best way to ensure that happening is to limit the probability of a spike in cases. And the best way to do that is to phase in slowly so that we have a better understanding of how well things are working. And then from phase 2 to phase 3, I believe is 4.5, 5 weeks. The reason being, instead of 3-week phase in, and talking with our high school principals, they said that, the term 1 was set to end sort of at the beginning of November. And instead of having a split term where, 4/5 of it was remote, and then the last fifth was hybrid, just make the whole term remote, because that would be easier in terms of grading, in terms of transition for their staff as well. So that was the thinking with that. It's not a perfect science, but we're doing our best there. And then people want to know, what are the considerations we're going to have as a school committee in order to decide if we're going to pause this phase in, if we're going to move forward with it, or even if we'll revert back. Ruth Jones has been very hesitant to provide exact language saying if we have X number of cases in a school, in the city, within QPS, you need to stop or you can move forward. The main reason is because there's just so much nuance to this that each individual case is so different that putting this stuff around a box is just not necessarily the best approach to have. But anyway, those metrics that we have, we'll use the Mass State COVID-19 color-coded metrics, so that map, the white, green, yellow, and red. At the moment, Quincy is in the green, which is fantastic news for us. So that map shows you the number of cases over new daily cases over a 14-day period, and it's adjusted for population as well. So they make it per 100,000. For the time being, Quincy's in the green, which is fantastic. And in addition to that, Ruth Jones did say that we should be looking at some other metrics because that map can't tell you the whole picture. So we're also going to look at the total number of active cases in the city of Quincy, the average of confirmed cases in Quincy per day over a 2-week period, the age of the persons with confirmed cases in Quincy, the number of cases in the school system, the number of confirmed adult cases who have children in QPS, the number of cases within QPS staff, and then the last one is just the data from cities and towns where our staff reside. Because as you know, just because Quincy's doing very well doesn't mean that other towns are as well. And believe it or not all of our staff happens to live in Quincy as well. They come from outside Quincy as well. So we're going to have to look at that data as well. And folks, it's going to be, I think, difficult. And trust me, I would certainly like to be able to say if we have X number of active cases, or if we have this many cases within a school system, we'll shut it down. But it's we've been cautioned against that. We've been cautioned from our public health officials to not do that. And Quincy isn't alone in that thinking regarding the phase-in approach. Boston's doing the same thing. Hingham and Weymouth are as well. Those just right around us. They're also taking that more general approach, saying this is what we're going to look at, but we can't put hard lines on these numbers.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, Anthony, you're building your own individual model here as it pertains specifically to the Quincy Public Schools population.
Right. I mean, we are, and that's sort of been how it's gone for all of Massachusetts, all 351 cities and towns. There are some regionals in there, so it's not 351, but school committees and administrators for public schools have been tasked with sort of this hodgepodge approach where every case is different. As I think it was Glenn Kuchar, the exec director of the Mass Association of School Committees, said, if you've seen one hybrid approach, you've seen one hybrid approach, because everyone's is different. There's not one that is exactly the same. So that's sort of where we're at. And when we were developing these metrics and the phase-in approach, Quincy was in the yellow according to the color-coded metrics. And not only that, but that map came out the day before school committees were scheduled to submit their plans to the state about what they were going to select. Other states like Maine and New York had these metrics and that sort of map delivered to their school committees, local districts, weeks in advance of them needing to make a decision. And they were also instructed to take a regional approach. So go county by county instead of individual town by individual town. I certainly have some feelings about how quickly school committees have been receiving this type of guidance. I think it's put us in a difficult spot. But I don't want to dwell too much and blame others. That's not really my prerogative. But I do want to tip my hat to the QPS administrators who have taken this all in stride and adjusted within 24 hours consistently upon receiving new guidance. And we continue to see new guidance every single week, it seems like.
What will the policy be, Anthony? If there is a positive case in a particular school in terms of what will happen and how that will be communicated?
Yeah. So I know we talked with Ruth Jones about this, and we as a school system had the opportunity to actually go through this process at the very beginning of the summer with our higher needs classes at a few of our buildings. We did have one positive case with a staff member. So the communication essentially, step one is the individual needs to notify public health in the city of Quincy. And then from there, Ruth and her team figure out exactly, when step one, when did they have symptoms? Have they received a test yet? How many people had they seen within the day? How long were they exposed to that person? While they were exposed to other people, how long were they wearing a mask? Were others wearing a mask? Were they 6 feet apart or more? And really, it's figuring that out. And that just shows every case is unique and a little bit different. So there's not a one size fits all. But let's say there's a confirmed positive case or even a probable where someone thinks they might have it. So we're working with public health and Ruth to make sure that everyone that was exposed is fully aware, that principals know, that teachers know, that families know, and people will get a notification right away, letting them know about what has happened within their class, within their school building. Because throughout this, people need to know, and they need to know as soon as possible if someone has contracted it, and especially if they were exposed, let's say within the same classroom as opposed to just within the same school system. And just as a reminder for folks, we're doing full cleanings, like extra thorough cleanings on Wednesdays, which are the full remote days, and over the weekends. But those aren't the only days we're cleaning. I mean, our custodial staff is quite literally cleaning our buildings every single day, constantly. So I have full faith in them, but folks should be aware that if unfortunately we do get a case, you'll know right away.
Okay. Another major impact is on school bus transportation.
Yeah, I know we voted last night to update our policy. This is at the recommendation of the Mass Association of School Committees and just the reality we face that we've heard from Mr. Drake, our Director of Security and Transportation, as well as Superintendent Mulvey. So effectively, folks have usually been able to buy into transportation if they live 1.5 miles out, radius out from their school. You can be transported, but with the restrictions that have been placed on us by the state regarding capacity and just the reality of the number of drivers we have, we lost a few over the summer. Just in this last week, while the policy was up for consideration, we lost another 2 drivers, one to retirement and one for medical purposes. So the new policy is effectively, instead of a 1.5 mile radius, if you live outside of that, now it's a 2 mile radius. And it honestly, you know, sometimes as a school committee, you have to take the hard vote that you know you just need to take. It's not necessarily the one that you really want, but this is just sort of the situation we're in. And unfortunately, that policy is going to affect a few hundred families in QPS. My understanding is around 500 or so. You know, it's not something. It's not a vote I enjoyed taking, but it's the reality that we face regarding capacity limits that have been placed on us by the state. The reality that we have been posting for drivers constantly. We have a permanent posting on School Spring. So if anyone's out there that wants to become a driver for Quincy Public Schools, by all means, I'd reach out to the administration because we would very much need their assistance and your assistance in doing that.
Could a student transfer to a closer school, Anthony? If would that be an option?
As with any case, you know, if a student is within a district, or sorry, excuse me, let me back up a little bit. As with anything, you know, you can submit the form asking to transfer schools. If there is space at that school, you know, the administration will work with you in moving over to that school. So, I mean, there is a possibility where someone could transfer to a school that's technically further away with the hopes of getting transportation that way.
Okay.
Yeah. That is a possibility. But we also brought up, you know, some of those families are going to have hardships.
Yep.
It won't be every family, but what we received assurances from the admin over the last 2 years, not 2 years, 2 weeks, 2 meetings, was that they'll always work with families to try and accommodate them. We understand that, you know, although we had to make this policy change, we're still going to work with our families to ensure that students can get to school and they have that transportation if absolutely needed.
Okay. Another couple of things. I know you approved fall sports practice face requirements, right?
That's right. So we did have, we approved high school athletics to be able to practice as a unit. Last night, the MIAA did require, and DESE required approval by a local school committee if your high schools were starting the year remotely, but were in the white or green. And in the last few weeks, you know, Quincy has moved from yellow to green. So now we had to take that vote. But the school committee felt it was in the best interest of you know, our students' health and social and emotional health, and with the updates that have been made, the adjustments to sports, that it would be safe for them to practice together. So
even football, Anthony?
So I mean, football, and I forget, a few other sports have been moved from the fall. So there's no football this fall.
Okay.
They created a floating season in late February where football might take place, but we're looking at effectively like soccer, golf, cross country, track, you know, things like that that are traditional fall sports are going to be allowed to happen with some adjustments. You know, an interesting example for soccer, there's no more throw-ins. They're all kick-ins now.
Okay.
If there's a free kick, usually, you know, you'll have your defenders line up in a wall right next to each other. You can't do that either. So I think there might be some more scoring this year with that rule in place. But we're continuing to work with our athletic directors to make sure that our coaches and our athletes know what those guidelines are.
Okay. And I mentioned face masks also, of course.
Yes. So we also added in the face mask policy, which was the recommendation from DESE and the Mass Association of School Committees to officially have a policy requiring face masks, and understanding that, you know, it's a matter of public health. You need to wear the face mask when you're within a classroom with individuals. Just so folks know, though, of course, there are exemptions for those that have medical reasons to not wear it and/or religious reasons. Although we can't really strongly advocate enough for the wearing of those face masks. We do understand that not everyone will be able to do it. Very last bit, we did also update our homework policy, which had been actually a few years in the making, and had a homework policy task force that presented their recommendations in the spring. And then the week we're going to vote to approve them, COVID happened and everything shut down. So we took a pause, but essentially we updated the homework policy so that instead of requiring teachers to assign no less than a certain number of minutes for homework, now it'll say no more than. And it also adjusted the amount of homework per grade level to better align with the latest thinking in homework within education. So that's online. People can learn more about that at quincypublicschools.com.
Okay. Meeting again next week, I'm assuming?
We will meet again next week. I think we'll get back into the swing of things, and we can check in after every meeting now.
Appreciate your time, Anthony. Great to talk to you.
As always, I'll see you next time, Joe.